We are back talking more golf here at oddschecker.com/US, doing it for the John Deere Classic. We're even going to throw in a little live action on the prop sheet before we head out this week. Not the greatest field, but that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities to be had this week. The winner will probably pay out more than anyone that's cashed a major ticket this year. So we can't ignore that these sorts of events, while not as star-studded, definitely do still represent the same or better betting opportunities. Certainly a crazy amount of variance on the outright wins market. And you can catch my video with Rick Gaiman at Rick Run Good, already posted on the feed. But now I'm talking with my guy at Tour Picks, Joe Idone. We're going to talk some props. We're going to talk anything he wants, but let's break it off. We'll get it right out of the way, Joe. We agree on something. Cam Davis, who I bet on this week, I could be guessing you've bet him to win the tournament, but it seems like, and just finding out is, we don't really talk beforehand till we pretty much load up the call. We're both on Cam Davis as one of our props this week, plus 220 over at DraftKings. For me, it's simple. You saw that great performance last week, comes in with form. You hope that just being there on the weekend, I like to look at a lot of these guys is that, everything's a learning experience. I'm an apologist for a lot of bad performances. He did not certainly have the greatest one on Sunday, but comes into this event, 17th in putting on bent grass in the field, third in approach. It's almost like the perfect John Deere mashup when you consider the form. So that's it for me, and tons of markets on Cam Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. DraftKings, I believe, has the best number out there right now on him to finish T20 at plus 220, which I still think is good odds, more than 2-1 on your dollar for him to finish inside that top 20, which he does, right? This isn't an abnormality, and he's done it in a lot bigger fields than this. He did it at the Charles Schwab. He did it at the RBC Heritage. Of course, he got that win last year right around this time at another TPC golf course up in Detroit, which I think could share quite a bit of characteristics to this. You mentioned the bent grass puttings. He's one of those guys, Geoff, that you just see massive splits between what his baseline is and the improvement and the jump that you see when they get on those bent grass surfaces. I love the way he goes out there and plays with a certain set of aggression and willingness to go get a victory. But I really think the top 20 this week is a pretty good value bet at getting plus 220 over at DraftKings, like we said.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. We're both playing separate matchups, but kind of guys in similar odds ranges this week. For me, it's Adam Schenk over Doug Ghim. Schenk has had quite the history here, Joe, and he did miss the cut last week, but he does come in with that T25 finish at the US Open. His last two appearances here, a 6th and a 4th. The putter was the reason he missed the cut last week. Last year, he gained nearly 8 strokes on the greens. So he'll honestly hit these greens as comfortable maybe as that on anyone, or hope. Listen, if you're going to bet him, I'm hoping for the good vibes when he brings it in here. Gim's certainly a guy that we know can be, dominate with the ball striking, but things have not been that great for Gim despite some perception. One finish in the top 30 since April. So not a ton going on there. I like the arrow for Schenk. I'm going to lay minus 110 Adam Schenk over Doug Ghim.
Yeah, like that also. My matchup, I'm going to go with Patrick Rodgers, who's even money over Scott Stallings this week. I kind of thought those odds would be flipped the other way around. At least that's how I had them in my head, Geoff. But Rodgers is on a nice little run. Ever since Mexico, he's been finishing like 35th. I believe is his worst finish through this stretch here. We know, and I heard you mention it earlier this week, his certain affinity for this golf course where he almost notched a victory and had it snatched from him late in the tournament. In good form, looked pretty sharp as well again at the US Open and in Canada the week before that. I'm going to keep riding the form here on another good bent grass putter. And I think that he's been steadier lately than what we typically see. We kind of know what we're going to get out of Scott Stallings at this point. He's going to have his ups and downs and his pops, but I think right now Rodgers is the player with a lot more upside, a lot more form, and he's the underdog in that matchup. So I'm going to take Rodgers over Scott Stallings.
Very big fan of Rodgers this week. He shows up on my outright card. Hayden Buckley, T40 for me, plus 175 over at FanDuel. Buckley finished 14th at the U.S. Open, and this field represents 90% of them wouldn't even be able to sniff the U.S. Open field. I know that's, not maybe the fairest dot to connect, but in an event that I just feel it works very well for Buckley, and I'm a proponent of playing a ceiling like Buckley's over any sort of journeyman. I've also bet Buckley to win the tournament at 150 to 1, so count me in for that T40 as well.
Yeah, good young player. He mentioned, I believe, post round at one of the US Opens that he's adopted this strategy now that they're using with like decade golf. I don't know how much you know about it, but it kind of changes the way that you play and you shoot for the middle of the greens. And he said he was just in a rut scoring, and it's really sort of freed him up, taken a lot of the decision-making process off of his and his caddy's plate. And he's just going out there and playing golf. And you can really kind of see that in the results. So anytime you get a young player, like whether it works or it doesn't work, if they're seeing positive results, it's always a definite positive for them. So I kind of, in the T40 market, had a similar idea, but went with a different player. So I'm looking for I'm not looking to take someone even money. I think that you mentioned this thing is sort of wide open to finish top 40. It's one of the weaker strength of fields that we're going to see all season. I took a little flyer on Michael Thompson, plus 190 over at FanDuel. So you're essentially getting nearly 2-1. Great putter, good short game. I wish he could have rubbed a little bit of that off on Lexi last week, but we know that that's sort of his strength. And, he had the win in Detroit as well. He's won at the Honda. He's kind of that journeyman that you said you didn't want to take necessarily, but at 2-1, this definitely feels like a week where he can top 40, and he has top 40 in his past two events played. So coming in, not playing great, but also not playing bad and missing cuts either. Michael Thompson plus 190 over at FanDuel on a top 40.
All right, Joe, those are props. We do share that Cam Davis one. Let's move on. We are going to make a couple live bets, or we seem to be on the same page as it pertains to a certain player in live this week at Live Portland. I have bet Bryson DeChambeau to win 16 to 1 this week. His health, I guess, is still a question, but why would he be playing in, I'm sure if he committed to live and said he was hurt, they would just say, okay, show up when you're healthy. Bryson's healthy. I think it's fair. I think he's super eager to prove to himself that he's healthy and can win. It's just a weird cat. That's saying nothing new, but I'm investing in Bryson this week. It's an outright bet. So, there's a variance for the loss, and I can easily expect the floor, but I'm willing to take my chance 16 to 1 in this field for Bryson DeChambeau, who I feel like's had enough of a tune up to get all those cobwebs out.
Yeah, he's been practicing. It was nice to see him. I don't know. I think this thing is going to have a different effect in terms of how different players handle it. It seems like he's handling it well. He seemed to be all smiles. It seems like I actually think that he is healthy at this point. And I'm going to take him in a matchup over a guy that, one, I don't think is healthy. One, I don't think is happy to be there and didn't have any smiles on his face in that awful, somewhat disgraceful press conference that he gave today. Bryson over Brooks. This would have been a classic matchup that we could have seen about this time last year. Bryson's the dog. He's plus 110. Brooks is minus 130. I have laid a pretty sizable wager. I feel pretty confident that Bryson is going to outplay him this week as an underdog. I'm on the same boat with you, man. Long golf course. I think that the motivation is 100% on his side versus on the side of Brooks Koepka, who he just doesn't seem content or happy with the decision that he made. And like, that was a tough watch today. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see it. I thought some guys performed well. I thought your guy, Matt Wolf, actually, I made comments. Someone going to smile at one of these things. To be honest, he seemed refreshed and energized and happy, and I'm happy for him. I thought Patrick Reed's honesty was outstanding. Mm-hmm. You might have thought that you didn't agree with some of the things he said, but he wasn't defensive at all. And the
Yeah.
guys that bothered, like he was honest with his gripes with the PGA Tour. He was honest, like, I got a 4 and an 8-year-old. I grinded this thing for a few years. I just want to go home now. Like, and I'll accept whatever comes with
They're
it.
in school. Yep.
Perez was funny, but at the
Yeah.
same time was getting ultra defensive. Bryson, always a weird cat. I don't know what you think, but Abe Answer to me struck me as the guy that's going to like miss the hardened competition the most. Of that the PGA Tour can offer. And Brooks just so grumpy, a total embarrassment, worse than anything Phil Mickelson did in front of a microphone in the last 2 months. Honestly, shocking, upsetting. It's so weird. You can honestly play Curb Your Enthusiasm music behind everything Brooks Koepka says right now.
I'm almost embarrassed because I've stood up for this guy many times head to head.
No, but you should. There was a version. There was a version, and I'll quickly defend them in the sense that, like, hearing them speak and a lot of them with their honesty, the FedEx Cup created this system, Joe, where they just felt obligated to play and play and play. And these guys are so prideful. And you create this FedEx Cup that's like a season-long championship. And Patrick Reed is such a competitor. Brooks Koepka is such a competitor. Despite what you think about them and their personalities, they're competitors, or at least they were. You could debate that now with certain decisions, I guess, that they've made. Yeah. But like, if they see themselves not going to East Lake, like, it's embarrassing. And they're just like, I got to keep playing. I got to keep playing. I got to keep stacking points. And it gets exhausting. So the FedEx Cup, in some weird way, it seems like, is a reason that a lot of these guys, at least they're using as an excuse that burnt out, or that they feel like they've had to play hurt or exhausted a ton because they're just so prideful in a number, and making sure that by hell or high water, they're going to be at East Lake. And that, I could see how that created a bit of an issue for a lot of players.
Yeah, so they're going to, like, part of it too is they're going to position the FedEx Cup as the culmination of a season-long championship, a la Super Bowl, a la NBA Finals. But the issue when these guys, like, I think part of the issue these guys have now is the way the format is, right? Like, before, Brooks could be 21st in the FedEx Cup standings, and you don't necessarily feel that same pressure. You walk into East Lake in 21st and you're 9 strokes behind Scotty Scheffler. You're 8 behind Justin Thomas. You're 7 behind, you know what I mean? So they're at such a disadvantage. Whereas Brooks, I think in years past, or Patrick Reed, if they get into this thing and they're 28th or 27th, they're like, okay, it's 4 days. It's a golf tournament. I can still win the Super Bowl, right? There's still something for me to play for, versus now it feels like it's whittled down to about 3-4 guys who are ultimately the young players. I mean, they're playing the best, but the guys who play a lot of events. And I think that's where some of this frustration boiled down to, with a bevy of other things that these guys mentioned. But yeah, totally disheartened. I thought it was extremely unprofessional of Brooks to not give, to still lie and give these false answers that we all know aren't true. And to, like, it was just bad. It was embarrassing. I wish he would have been a little bit more prepared and shown a little bit of energy for the thing. But yeah, it was tough watch.
And here's the thing. He can be grumpy, like, you keep asking me the same questions. Well, you've answered them like an expletive for the last 2 months. Yeah. Like, I don't think as we go forward, the guys that are like honest, contrite, not defensive, are going to get peppered in the same way the guy that just keeps lying to you is going to get it from the media.
Right. Like, saying he didn't know he was going until after the US Open. It's like mind-boggling that anyone could believe that is true.
There's no way. And it goes to a lot of, like, his comments in February, Joe, where he's essentially like mocking anybody who's a big enough loser to take this live thing on.
Yeah, at the Honda,
he's part of it. Lots of guys made comments in February aligning themselves with the PGA Tour that they backtracked on. But their comments were more of, I'm on the PGA Tour. I'm dedicated to the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour has been great to me. My future will be with the PGA Tour. Did they lie? Yes. Brooks did the same thing, except he added to those comments by preemptively making fun of anyone who goes to live and he ends up going to Live.
Yeah.
Same time, PGA Tour's got a lot of problems. I'm not here to defend them either. We've kind of gone off track and ranted, but I think people like you and like me, and if they're watching, they care. They like our when we make it, how we feel, and our personalities come out in a conversation. And my only true feelings are like, I'm just sad that golf is fractured, like as a fan of the sport. And I acknowledge the PGA Tour is far from perfect, but I kind of just want what's best for professional golf. And I am certain what Liv is trying to do is not that. Like the PGA Tour can change a lot of things, but this Liv model and what they're trying to do is not what's best for the future of pro golf. And I love pro golf. I love it the same way people love the NFL and baseball and the NBA. Like, I love it. So yeah, I just don't want. Yeah. So that's it. We've ranted. I'll give you any final thought you want, friend.
Look, I'm in the same boat as you, right? I'm not pro Live. I'm pro the PGA Tour, but I'm also can be very critical of a lot of the decisions that they've made over the years. And I wish that, and I hope that this is going to enact more change for the better, make the product itself better. This is, like, without a doubt, the most compelling story that I can remember since I started doing sort of golf content. So we'll see how things shift from here, Geoff. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can take advantage of it in a betting market for the short-term period, and hit some stuff at the John Deere as well. So best of luck to you this week and everyone else out there.
And I think, a lot of people, Joe, like, we're here to acknowledge this is a win for Liv in the sense that they're now going to have their second event this week. And it includes Bryson DeChambeau, who, when healthy, has the skill set to be the best player in the world. This event's going to include Brooks Koepka, who, when healthy, is probably the most feared player for other elite players to see on a leaderboard in the entire world. For people to not acknowledge that those are incredible gains for Liv, and where they could be in 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years. Like, I'm here to say this is a win. Them pulling off this event in Portland, that's a win. I'm calling a strike. That's a win, that's a win for Liv.
Listen, Matthew Wolff, heck, like, the guy was number 12 in the world like a year ago. He had a good fall swing. Like, that's a good gift. The kid out of Oklahoma State, that's a good get for them. Patrick Reed has shown signs of circling back into form. Like, these are the guys, Geoff, that we talk about, like, after tournaments and keep the storylines going on golf Twitter. Bryson, Reed, Mickelson, Brooks, when they're in contention, we like to talk about it. They're exciting. They strike an emotional chord with viewers and consumers that other players simply do not. So they're good for the game. I wish they were still on the PGA Tour, but I'm interested. I'm going to watch, man. I'm going to watch.
And holistically, I like to think that I would care more about, like, Mav McNeely versus Heath going for their first win. But if it's like Brooks versus Bryson or Brooks versus Reed, I don't know. Like, I'm self-aware enough to admit that might actually do it for me, despite my holistic approach, wanting to think that this real fight for career on the PGA Tour is where my attention would be. I'm self-aware to know I don't know. So we'll see how good of an event Liv does, I guess, offer. Joe, everyone have a great weekend. It's summertime. Enjoy it. Don't get stuck indoors watching golf. You can still bet it, though. For Joe, I'm Geoff Fienberg. We'll see you next week. Sub, like, all that fun stuff. Support. Thank you, oddschecker.com/US.